All right. Last call. Please join us, everybody. Come on back. The one complaint we do have about this room is that tile floor really resonates. So come on back. Adam Nolasco, could you come join us here? I see Terry Miller, could you join us? Who else do we have? These lights are really bright, but come on, have a seat, guys. Any teachers' pets? Couple of spots up here. If you're in the lumber business, there's probably not many teachers' pets, but anyway, thank you very much for joining us. My name's Morgan Wellens, president of Nicholson Cates, and we're here to welcome everybody to the NAWLA Montreal regional meeting. So thank you. I hope everybody had a smooth flight in. I know there were a few disruptions, but for those of you who are here and made it on time, thank you. We're thrilled for you to join us. So I'm honored to welcome everybody and kick off the Montreal Wood Convention with this event. And I want to start by thanking NAWLA and the Montreal Wood Convention for your partnership and for working together all these years to bring this event together. So, just so everybody knows, a couple of housekeeping issues here, but this event kicks off NAWLA's 2026 regional meeting schedule. So these events are hosted throughout North America, from Birmingham, Alabama, to Vancouver, Portland, Maine, and in the Northeast we have, Portland, Oregon, and then in the Northeast we have Rockport, Maine. Any other questions? If you'd like to learn more about any of these regional meetings, certainly please check out the NAWLA booth, which is going to be on the trade show floor for the rest of the week. So a couple of thank yous here. You know, anybody who's participated in any of these, helped organize them, it's a tremendous amount of work. You know, it's not easy finding a fine set of panelists like this who are going to engage and teach everybody something. But it's not possible without all of the hard work from my fellow committee members. So just to thank everybody here. And if you would stand up for us, please. Alex Fortin, Sven Gustafsson, and Natalie Oud from the Montreal Wood Convention. We also have Ben Jordan and Dustin Wood with Nicholson Cates, Evan Rushja with Weston Wood Solutions, and Ryan Satterfield with Sarasimo Lumber. Thank you, guys. So we do have some regional meeting, some regional meeting national sponsors. So these organizations are sponsoring every regional meeting throughout North America, helping bring it together. So we have 526 Media, DMSI Software, the Softwood Forest Products Buyer, and Solutions 21. We also have our local set of sponsors who are specifically sponsoring this event for us here today, helping take care of cocktails and appetizers and many of the other things. So a big special thank you to our sponsors who made this afternoon's presentation possible in alphabetical order. Canadian Engineered Wood Products, Sarasimo Lumber, Falcon Lumber, Interfor, Nicholson Cates, Phoenix Forest Products, Ready Pine, Remboss, Robbins Lumber, Seaboard International, and WRC Lumber Sales. Quick round of applause. Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to welcome NAWLA's Executive Director, Matt Bruno. He's going to be around for the week and attending the entire Montreal Wood Convention. So Matt's right here. And again, if you're looking to learn more about the NAWLA Traders Market, which is taking place in Anaheim, California this fall, or any of the other events that NAWLA organizes, please talk to Matt. We've also got Kat and Sarah's here as well from NAWLA. So they'll be at the booth. We're going to roll into this now. We've got an amazing panel of speakers with us today. They're going to share their insights on the evolution of prefabricated housing. So the emphasis on this, and the reason why we thought this resonates, we often talk in our industry that really home construction hasn't changed in 100 years, particularly the framing of your traditional stick frame home. There's been almost no productivity increases since really the pneumatic nail gun, right? Adding an air compressor. Right? Everybody still runs around the job site with a hammer on their tool belt. So this team here is talking about how that's changing, the evolution. We're going to talk about everything from cost structures, increased quality, and everything in between. But how we're going to do this, each panelist is going to give a quick introduction of themselves and the business and their industry. So first off, I'd like to invite Denis Bott.
Thank you, everybody. So everybody having a good time so far? Right? How about a round of applause for our host here? So, little history behind where I came from and how I landed here. So, 35 plus years in the engineered wood industry, working for a lot of the majors, Weyerhaeuser, GP, Boise Cascade, and then here recently joined forces with Element 5 on the mass timber side of the business. Back when I was at Boise Cascade, the previous 7 years I was developing a new product for them to have them enter into the mass timber arena. So, yeah, excited to be here. Let's see if I got this right. All right, just a couple of quick slides. I think I only have 200 slides. So, Element 5 is part of a bigger group. We're part of the Hochschlager group. So in North America, we're the only brick and mortars that has facility with operations, CLT, GLT, engineering, architecture on staff. But then we're part of the group that's in Europe, which is another 15 facilities. So the 125-year history of Hochschlager, we get the benefit of in Ontario, Southern Ontario. Basically, our business is broken up into three core businesses. On your left is our commodity base, which is our glulam product, typically used in more residential distribution type products. If you go into the center, we deal with a lot of fabricators and integrators where they're going to do the engineering, but we'll actually do the CNC work to get it ready for the connection detailing. And then the third is the biggest portfolio of our business, which is project business. So basically turnkey business, everything from engineering all the way through to product delivery, working with third-party installers, fabricators. My friend here, Mario, he'll tell you how he can integrate with our products as well. And for those that want to take a quick picture and connect, I'll leave this up until I see some phones out. But I want to thank the opportunity to be here and talk about our business.
That's wonderful, Denis. Thank you very much. Next up, Nick Boulton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick Boulton, Head of Technical and Trade Policy at Timber Development UK, the largest trade association representing timber distributors and importers in the UK. For some of the older guys in the room, Timber Development UK was formed in 2022 from a merger between the Timber Trade Federation and the Timber Research and Development Association. So I thought the best way to kick off today was really just to remind you what the UK market looks like. So I just got a couple of slides and give you a bit of a background. So just over 15 million cubic metres of wood were consumed in the UK in 2024. 53% of that came from the European mainland. About 35% came from within the UK itself, and the balance came from various countries around the world. That's split into softwood, which represents solid softwood, is 60% of that material. And the other big sections are things like particle board and OSB in terms of consumption. Let me go back. To give you some idea of what's imported and what's produced in the UK, so the softwood section is the biggest. So 2/3 imported to 1/3 UK production. So that's 6 million cube of softwood imported into the UK, 3 million produced from our own forests. Hardwood, well over 90% of hardwood coming into the UK is imported, but we only use a tiny percent of our own resources. Softwood plywood, hardwood plywood, all imported. Particle board, 80% production in the UK, 20% imported. MDF, split almost 50-50. Engineered wood products, almost all imported into the UK. Very little production in the UK, just some I-beams and some glulam. Sorry, going in the wrong direction. So what did we do with that 15 million cube? Well, in 2024, we produced 133,000 houses. That was the most we could manage back in 2024, and probably even less in 2025. But as you can see, back in 21, we were looking at over 200,000, 212,000. But the English housing market is very much split between the English market and the market in Scotland. So in 2024, we built 117,000 houses in England, but 85% of that was masonry construction. Only 15% was timber frame. So just under 17,500 timber frame units. The Scottish market is the complete reverse, 85% timber frame. So between the two markets, although the Scottish market is much smaller, in 2024, we were producing roughly the same amount of timber frame units. But we have greater ambitions, and we're looking at when we get back to producing 220,000 houses, if we can get that percentage in England up to 60%, that's a jump from 17,000 timber frame units to 132,000. So that's an additional 1.5 million cubic metres of softwood. So the key question is, where do we source that wood from, and how do we get to that position? So just to give you a little bit of perspective for the wider European market, so building permits in 2022 represented 2 million units, down in 2024 to about 1.5 million. But that's still a huge market, of which the UK is just part. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Up next, Alain Boulet.
Bonjour, everyone. I think it's the first time in 12 years that we opened the bar before doing the presentation. I'm not sure. So,
And he started early.
yeah. A little bit of my background. As a student, I was working in my dad's shop for 10 years long, 10 summer long. He was producing 10 mobile homes a week. So after that, after I graduated, 3 years later, I started my own prefab company. And I was producing mobile home first, followed by modular home, and followed by panelized home. And later on, we were exporting 40% of our production of house package outside of North America. So the countries were Japan, France, Germany, Iceland. Those were the main countries. So after 20 years, I sold my company, and I stayed there four other years for the transition. And after that, I've been a year in Calgary. I accepted a mandate to start the modular operation in Airdrie, north of Calgary. I stayed there for a year. And after that, I came back to Quebec and I joined QWEB. So now I help my previous competitor. Now I help them to export. This is my job. So a little bit of what is QWEB wood construction. Whoop, that goes too fast. Okay. QWEB has about 130 members, all producers of wood products, and I'm the manager of the wood construction sector. And you see the 22 members there. One is missing, but should be 22 logo. Those are the members of prefab components that I help to export. And the market we are is US. 100% US. There's no, don't say it too loud, but there's no tariff and no tax on the prefab components going to the US market. Shh, okay, I didn't say nothing. So guys, you're on sawmill, so it would be a way for you to, through us, to go to the US market, to go to the US. So what are those prefab components? When I say prefab components, I could say industrialized components, I could say off-site components, it's all the same. So what are those prefab components? They are post and beam glue laminated timber, cross-laminated timber, wood and clay, because we did some sales in Africa using African clay to put in Canadian wood structure, all prefabricated. We also have the pre-insulated wall concept. We have the regular wall panel, the floor truss with the metal connectors. We have the roof truss, the box, the modular volumetric. We also have the fire retardant lumber treated against termite and the fire, certified for the US regulation. And we have the I-joist and the open web joist. So those are the 22 manufacturers you have seen. They produce those prefab components. What type of buildings we do with those components? It's the type of buildings you see on the screen. The one on the left corner, the multi-unit, is a good market for the Quebec companies. So we do a lot of 4 to 5 story building, wood frame, light wood frame on concrete podium. But we also do other type of buildings. So it gives you an example where your lumber goes. We face challenge in construction in Canada, US, and Europe. We all have the same challenge. There's a big shortage of labor. There's a shortage of affordable housing. Construction takes more and more time. The price goes up, etc., etc. And there's some solution to it. I'm going to show it the next slide. The Canadian government, they have a good initiative to speed up the construction of affordable units. The second one, the 3D BIM, the building information modeling, what it is that we build the entire project on a screen, on a computer, on a screen in 3D. So we can see if there's any conflict with the plumbing pipes going through a joist, for example, so we can see it on the screen. So we solve all the conflict on the screen first. So when it's a go for the job site will be way faster. And another solution is to use more prefab components instead of stick framing or stick building with a skill saw and a bundle of 2x6 on site. So the evolution will be that those contractors, they will be more assembling the prefab component instead of cutting them on site. So this is the future of the construction. So Canadian initiative called Build Canada Homes or Maisons du Canada. It's a $30 billion program on 5 years. They want to double the pace of residential construction to build affordable units on public lands, and they want to use the prefab components. So this is really a federal initiative, and there's been an agreement between the Quebec government and the Canadian government recently is that Build Canada Homes will will partner with a similar program that we have in Quebec, the province of Quebec. So they will match up together to increase the liquidity in order to build more affordable units in the province of Quebec. The other federal initiative is the CMHC catalog. CMHC stands for the Central Mortgage Housing Corporation. For each province of Canada, they have designed with standards catalog for units. So those units can be produced with volume and repetition and can be prefabricated. So those are two good initiatives that will speed up the construction in Canada and that will use prefab components. Now, the reality that the prefabricator face, most of them, they buy 2 and better lumber, same as a regular contractor on site. So they buy 2 and better. But when you have curved lumber and weighty lumber and twisted lumber, and you try to imagine you have a feeder that will feed a wall framing table, piece by piece, and then you ask your automatic nailer and to do the job, it cannot work. So it is possible to use 2 and better, but we need to have a little bit of the, I would say, the best quality of the 2 and better. So the reality that the manufacturer face is, if they are not automated, they have about 5% rejection of a bundle of 2x6, for example, of 8 foot long. They will not be able to use 5% of that 8 foot long lumber. They will be able to use it, but with smaller piece, like 1 foot or 2 foot or 3 foot. But they have to put aside about 5% of the bundle. So this is human time consuming. And if they are automated, there will be an extra 5% that will add on top of it, because they invested in maybe $10, $15, $20 million investment for automation. But the equipment, they will not accept those curved and twisty and weighty lumber. So of course they could buy premium lumber, but they will be out of the price. They will not be competitive purchasing premium lumber from you guys. So what they want to have 2 and betters, but a good 2 and better, not the worst part of it. So the message they have to give to you is that those prefabricators, they don't buy from the retailer, which is maybe 2 to 3 streets away from their plant. They skip that level. They go directly to the wholesaler, or they buy directly from the mill. So my message to you, this is my last slide, but my message to you is, you now know that the prefabricators, they will build more and more buildings. So it's good for you, it's more lumber. But they need to work hand in hand with you. They're going to tell you the annual volume they are buying and how many deliveries they want during the year, maybe 6 deliveries, 7 deliveries, 8 deliveries, I don't know. And the payment term. So I highly suggest you sit with them, and then it might be a good market for you, knowing that the future goes through their hands. So this is the message I have to tell to you. And if you want to reach them, for at least the one who sells in Quebec, to the prefabricators in Quebec, you can go through me. I know all of them. It will be my pleasure to connect you directly to them. So that's it.
Fantastic. Alain, thank you very much. Up next, Mario Ribeiro.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself and our business, and how I started and what we're doing and our plans for the future. So our business is called PrimeFab. This is the business that I'm here representing, but it sort of all started 37 years ago we started. I started as a framer. That was my trade, and short stint, but it opened up my eyes to the realities of construction, etc. So over the last 30 years, we've built a whole building envelope group of companies, about 20 different companies that we own and operate. We employ about 600 people, mostly in Ontario, some in Alberta. So 2 years ago, we founded PrimeFab. We're about to open up a new facility. So this comes born out of my experience as a framer and all the different manufacturing lives and businesses that I've gone through, and it's about manufacturing, like getting construction to embrace the future, automation. So we about 2 years ago, I actually went to Europe, explored all the different ways that they do manufacturing there, prefab, walls, panels. It's very common, like we're sort of behind the times here. They've been doing it there for 40, 50 years. And learned a lot, and put together a team, put together a big shopping list of very expensive equipment, and we started getting things going. So this was actually our first build. It was more of a test project. Our manufacturing line is just being tested, and this is we found like tremendous savings in the install on site, and of course in the plant. We go through building this takes no time. We have actually two main products to address two markets that we have. We also do some high rise. So we have a wood panel and we have an aluminum panel, but we are talking about the wood panel mostly. What we find is definitely like huge increase in reducing the time on site. And this takes me back to my experience where we were literally with a hammer and a pouch nailing walls on site in the mud and carrying 2x4s and 2x6s and going through all of that. So it's a big eye opener, and not much has evolved. I mean, there is more, but it's a small percentage. In Europe, I think we're talking about 40, depending on the country, anywhere from 20 to 60% of construction is being now automated. So this is a snapshot of the assembly line. So we brought all of this from Germany, and we did spend close to $30 million, big shopping list. And now it's going to be about, the challenge is about educating both, suppliers like yourselves, clients, developers, etc., to understand the challenges that exist to really get it going. And my colleague here mentioned like 90% of them, of the issues. But definitely also educating, building officials, financial institutions, and developers on making this standardizing all we do so that it becomes normal. Because right now it's cutting edge here. It's normal in many countries in Europe. It's like this is how they do it. There's a whole machine that makes it seem easy, and here we're still struggling, but we're gonna get there. There's a great group here we're all gonna do it together, right? And that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Mario, thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dustin Wood.
Hey everybody, my name is Dustin Wood. I'm the Director of Sales and Purchasing at Nicholson & Cates. First of all, thanks very much to our panelists for being here. I think there's a ton of expertise here. I think if we play it right, we can probably solve the housing crisis in 27 minutes and be back at the bar. So let's jump right in. Let's get right to the heart of the question. I think one of the key questions, I think a lot of people, we look at the concept of prefabricated, industrialized housing. It makes logical sense. It's practical. It's a solution that seems to be tailor-made for the challenge we're facing with the housing crisis. And I'll tag specific panelists for each question. So, what are the biggest barriers preventing prefabricated housing from scaling across North America today? And Dennis, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think Mario said it best. I think it all starts with education. We've heard affordable housing a few times already. One of the biggest typologies that we do as a company, even in the mass timber world, is affordable workforce housing. We've done over 30 of them already. We have a system that works. I think, Dustin, to your question, the heart of it is really having the commercial construction industry kind of come up to speed with what manufacturers. We're basically material supply firms. And what happens a lot of times in the construction process, we're being held to, subcontractor, requirements. So they want us to be bonded. They want our insurances. They want our firstborn. That's not how it works. We're at the heart, we're material suppliers. We just happen to do it off-site. And I think as soon as we get the contract side of it up to speed, it's going to help folks like on the panel here, because it's a huge strain when you look at mass timber, for instance. We have, let's say, 50 or 60 projects at any one time. 60 to 70% of it is wood. So as we look at the supply chain, I think the one thing that you'll hear from most manufacturers with mass timber is, yes, we want better material. Yes, we want lower prices, right? That's the given. But for instance, what we do at our facilities, we have a regrading line. So we buy our MSR, we regrade it. What doesn't meet, we can put in the center of our product. So there are things that we're doing specifically to support the supply chain, but I think the biggest thing for adoption is to really get the construction, the legal side, the contract language to be reflective of really what we do. And we really supply materials. So.
Thank you very much. Mario, interested on your opinion on this question as well.
Yes, we're finding the same challenges. It's happening literally every week where developers are coming to us and saying, no, we want you to adhere by the same CCDC contract form that they hold their framer usually to, and it makes it very difficult. I mean, there's additional holdback period that all of a sudden we as a supplier, we're gonna get stuck with having our money tied in for, could be a year, could be years, right? While they complete the project. So that part is, that's huge. So educating them, and we're pushing, working very closely with framers, etc., trying to partner with them and trying to get around that. But it shouldn't be this difficult, but I guess that's what happens when you're the first one. You're opening it up for others, and somebody's got to do it, right?
The leading edge is often the bleeding edge, right? So
yes, for sure.
So it kind of leads into this next question, and Morgan mentioned this. The limited amount of construction or improvements in construction productivity over the last 40 years, the pneumatic nail gun. I don't know. I see some TikTok videos with guys with hammers with levels on them. Maybe that's an invention too. But construction productivity is barely improved in decades. How can mass timber and industrialized construction and prefabrication change that? And Nick, I'd like to start with you.
Yes, certainly in the UK, the weather is probably one of our biggest barriers in terms of efficiency. And I think pre-manufacture helps you get around that, because obviously you're producing material off-site. So the amount of time that contractors have to spend on site is much reduced. I think also it's changing the workforce, and that's really critical bit in the UK, is because in the UK we've got an ageing site site contractors, and what we need to do is bring more people into construction in terms of diversification, but also a younger age range, and both of those don't want to work on site. Who would? Who wants to work in the pouring rain and freezing cold? So prefabrication gives us the opportunities to get around that. And for me, I think that's probably the biggest evolution that pre-manufacture brings.
Thanks very much. And Alain, you kind of alluded to some of this in your presentation, but I'm curious to know, specific to your experience as being a prefabricated builder, how does that impact the productivity on the site when you're actually prefabricating the wood beforehand?
Well, when prefabrication is about 10 times more productive compared to stick building, and you're going to reduce by a minimum of 20% the construction time using prefab components. So what does it mean? It means also that the investor will get his money back months before. So if it's, I don't know, a 200 apartment units and it's completed 6 months before, then the investor will be more than happy. And using prefab components, you have less waste of material because you control the waste of material in your plant. And a lot of plants, they reuse it to heat the building. And also you reduce the CO2 emission. So all those combined together, it gives more productivity using prefab components compared to stick building. So as I said, in Europe, they don't have the same situation. Here we've been, for 400 years, we've been stick framing the houses. 95% of the houses in Canada are wood frame, but they've been all stick frame. Again, go on a job site and you will see the contractor cutting with a skill saw, with a bundle of 2x6. They will assemble the wall on the ground before putting them up on the floor. In Europe, you don't see it. Everything is manufactured, especially in Sweden. Why it's not like here like that? We are the pioneer we are one of the pioneers to build homes with timber frame, with wooden frame, but we still use a skill set. That doesn't make sense. So, but it's tough to change 400 years of history. But because, as I said, the federal government and the Quebec government, they are putting pressure now and money to use prefab components. So this will change the way it's being done in Canada.
And I think that's a good point. I think that part of the reason this is, there's a recent push for this, is it's been, the labor shortage is more acute in the last 20, 30 years than it has been previously. So, and just the demands on housing in general. So I think that's a key point. It's a recent development for us, but we're here now. We need to adopt it. How does North America compare to the UK and Europe in terms of mass timber and prefabricated housing, both from a supply and a construction standpoint? And Nick, I'd like you to weigh in on this first.
Yeah, I think the I think the UK is very different in terms of production. So what particular area do you want me to cover?
Well,
so
just the contrast of
between the two.
Yeah, I suppose for us, a lot of times we view Europe in particular as being ahead of the curve, or ahead of our curve, anyways.
Yeah.
With the UK, you pointed out in your slides, there's somewhat of a adoption issue when it comes to stick frame in general, or to lumber in housing in general, but maybe just a comparison of where Europe's at or where the UK's at as compared to North America in terms of adoption of these new technologies.
Yeah, so I think as Alain was saying earlier, that the The use of panelised off-site construction has very much been the norm in the UK. So there's very little. There's been very little stick building in terms of timber frame, but more importantly, the construction on site has been masonry construction, but it has always happened on site. So even there, we're seeing a move towards prefabrication. In terms of mass timber, the UK is slightly out of step with the rest of Europe because of the big fire that happened at Grenfell in 2017. That's kind of put building regulators very much on the back foot in terms of mass timber construction. So we're not seeing the development that we should be seeing, really. Whereas I think the rest of Europe, we're seeing considerable growth. So when you look at countries like Norway, Finland, Sweden, the development of mass timber there is fantastic. And particularly Germany and Austria as well. But the UK still has a lot of catching up to do in terms of that.
And Dennis, just from your knowledge of the European market, how does it compare in terms of their development and adoption of the technology and the products?
I think we talked to it a little bit. The biggest thing what I see between the European market and the North American market, when you build a house in Europe, you're building it for generations. I think the mentality is in North America, you're building it for like a 50-year cycle, and it's going to get knocked down and rebuilt. So when you're in Europe, you see more heavy timber construction versus you do in the States and in Canada that I see. It's just a mentality shift. Like when someone builds a house, they're going to build it for their children's children, not just to be knocked down in 50 years. So I think there's that component of it. As far as them being further advanced, I can really only speak to the mass timber side. 40, 50 years, Austria is really where mass timber was kind of culminated out of. I think Dustin, if we look at the States, I think if you look at the top 10 builders, most of the top 10 builders are already in prefabrication. They're getting engineered wood packages, prefabricated, delivered to site, wall trusses, floor and roof trusses. As you go to more of the custom homes, I think you still see a lot of stick built. So just a little bit on the residential side. And then as far as the mass timber side in North America, there's more in design and development and construction now on the east of the States versus where it came in through the Pacific Northwest. So you're kind of seeing this evolution of adoption. Now every state across the United States is using mass timber, Hawaii, Alaska. So we're getting there, but it's just not at the rate that it could be.
Can I give a piece of answer on this question too?
Yes, go for it.
We had a good example with Mario presentation. The equipment he had in his plant was Weinmann. Yes. Correct. Okay, so Weinmann is made in Germany. If you look at the software that we use to run those, to do our shop drawing, we use CADWork, a 3D software. We use CADWork is made in Switzerland, I think. We use HSBCAD, which is made in Belgium. There's Dietrich, CIMA. Those are all European software. So those European guys, they are in advance compared to us for machinery, for equipment, for software. And just look at the EPD, the Environmental Product Declaration. They all have it. I've been to Sweden 2 years ago with 20 manufacturers from Quebec, and they all have their EPD over there. Compared to Canada, in the prefab business, not a lot. We have we know our footprint of CO2, but in Europe they do have it.
We do.
Good
yeah,
thing
we
for
do.
you. But I think the mass timber industry, they have it, but the light
different.
wood frame, it's different. And then now in 2026, this year in Europe, they will start using the digital passport. So it's a QR code. So if you scan it, you will see the 3D drawings of the manufacturer. You will see how to install the roof truss, for example, how to, do the maintenance, a lot of information. And here in Quebec, we just stopped talking about this. In Europe, they will implement this year. So they are in advance for the technology, for the software, for the equipment. So we're like maybe five years behind them.
Thanks very much. And just to be clear, Alain, you now lose one of your answers for your future questions. I'm just kidding.
We're going there. We're going there.
I'm just joking. Mario, I wanted to have you sort of tackle this one to start, and I'm going to challenge anybody that answers this question to sort of. I'll say this. Industrialized construction often requires manufacturers to utilize different raw material purchasing strategies. How can the forestry and distribution sectors help address the working capital and supply chain challenges that these manufacturers face? And I'm gonna challenge anybody that answers this question to focus on things that are not related to quality. And I'll say it for this reason. You know, if you guys were my customers, I would push back on the fact that wood is a living thing and that we all deal with the defects and all would love to have better wood. So with that removed, what strategies can us as distribution partners, as producers, come together with you to make this an effective strategy?
Right. Well, we'll use Europe as an example. So from our research, what we've found is because they're very established there with their the whole machinery of the prefab. One of the things that they have that's part of the DNA of the industry is that they have, multi-year agreements with, so basically the manufacturer will have multi-year agreements, buying agreements with the suppliers of the wood. That is good for both sides, but it provides, predictable pricing, predictable delivery. The other thing is, which is a big deal in our industry here, is we need to receive the material in the plant way before it ever arrives on site, obviously. And the way the whole financing industry here in North America has been sort of designed to is that you deliver, your skid of wood to the site, and 30 days start counting, and the developer applies for their draw to the financing, and 60 days later, if they're lucky, they get paid, and that's not so bad. But with us, by the time it gets to site, it's been at the plant for, it could be a month, it could be more if you have to stockpile for different reasons, right? So, so terms would have to, it's something that needs to be structured differently. We all have to start thinking out of the box on this one. It's being done, if we're gonna really embrace this, it will have to be like all the stakeholders gonna need to adapt and assist in that. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I would say the interesting, I think there's an opportunity here that we're seeing, perhaps there is, at least we're feeling it in Ontario, there's a slowdown. There's a lot of good initiatives from the government, the federal government, and local governments to try to, at least get these affordable housing projects to sort of get the engine going again. But we do need the private business to come back, and that's really the long term to make it sustainable. We're going to need that for the good of all of us. What I have noticed, and I had this experience just recently, was a developer that we were meeting with, and great, he wanted to, we have all of these developers actually coming to us. They want to learn about it. They're very interested. They want to try it. They want to, put it into their mix, if not change it completely, at least get it part of the mix. But the comment that this developer had was, well, you know what, with the slowdown, we actually have time to think about this now. And I see that as an opportunity. And literally, he was saying, well, if this was 3 years ago, we would be too busy. Even if it costs more, we just want to get it done, and we don't want to stop and think about it. So that's the opportunity we all have. But we do have those challenges that we on our own can't, solve. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And Dennis, I wanted to ask you the same question as a mass timber manufacturer in Ontario. How can the industry better support your company?
Yeah, I think, Mario, you said it. It's just terms, but just to say terms is one thing. I think anybody that wants to supply a mass timber manufacturer, let's have a discussion and see what it means for you, what it means for us. We can't have something that works today and not tomorrow. We have to try to build something that recognizes the contract challenges that we have running a mass timber manufacturer and you, a supplier of lumber. And we kind of have to meet in the middle somewhere. At the end of the day, until the contract side kind of right sizes and treats us like a material supplier where we can give net 30 days, it's going to be a challenge. And if you look across, whether it's Europe, North America, South America, we all run into these challenges because we're just being held to a subcontractor status, and that's why the terms is like the quick button for us to say, hey, if we can work something out on that side. It's not as much for me, the quality side, because we're going to regrade everything that comes in and dry it if we need to and go through a Microtech and GoldenEye, but terms is the easy one, but let's have a discussion.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to, Alain, I'm going to get you to tackle this one. What innovations in wood products or manufacturing processes are likely to have the biggest impact on the future of prefabricated housing?
I briefly mentioned it. It's the digital turn. It's the to build the project on the screen first in 3D. This is important, and to have right at the beginning of the process. Let's say you're building a 5-story, 400 apartment units. So there's an architect involved. There's a structural engineer involved in such a project. So we need to sit with them right at the beginning, because those guys, the architect, they don't know our reality. He doesn't know our reality. They don't know what a wall panel looks like. They don't know how the size of a module. So they don't design properly at the beginning. So we need to sit with them, to give them tools. We need to give them our 3D catalog library to the architects so they can copy and paste our 3D walls, our 3D roof system, floor system, so when they design a building. So that way, when it's gonna arrive back to the producer, it will be already be ready to be produced. Right now, what's happening is the architect designed a project, and when we see it, it doesn't make sense. We need to go back and forth with him to make changes, and sometimes they don't want to make change, so we find a way to do it, but it's not being optimized to be industrialized, so there's an extra cost to it, and then you will say, prefabrication is not that cheap. Yeah, but it has to be designed right at the beginning. You don't build a Toyota Corolla car differently for each of us. So same thing if you think industrialization, you have to think right at the beginning. So we must use the 3D tools we have now available to us. We need to inform the architects, to connect with the architects and the specifier right at the beginning of the process. When you do modular buildings, 80 to 85% of the building is done in a plant. The toilet is installed, the gypsum board is installed, the kitchen cabinet are installed. So those guys, they want to get paid as soon as they deliver, not 90 days later. The job is done, 80, 85%. So the tender must reflect this reality, which is not the case at this moment. So all the documentation for the tender, the architect must sit with the prefabricators right at the beginning, the structural engineer, and even the mills. Because usually the prefab company, that was my case. I was doing modular and panelized. So modular, I was turning my inventory about every month and a half, turning my inventory. Last year, we went with a bunch of Quebec producers. We visited in Japan eight automated producers over there. including Toyota wood home. And Toyota, I asked the question, if you stop purchasing your OSB plywood and lumber, how many days you will be able to produce? He said to me, 2 days. They turn their inventory every 2 days. We cannot reach that just in time in North America, but at least if we can turn it every month and a half, that would be good. But for this, we need also to sit with the mills.
Those are very impressive turns, and I can't hit those. Something to aspire to. Nick, I want to ask you the same question, specific to the UK market. Innovations that are upcoming that are likely to change, or change how wood is used in construction over there.
I think Alain used 2 words that really sum it up: digital optimization. And in the UK, that's really what's pushing the boundaries. So not just from a project point of view, but even in terms of things like roof trusses. So the design of roof trusses needs to be optimized to maximize the use of wood that you've got available. And that optimization needs to feed through into production and purchasing. So your purchasing needs to better reflect how your truss rafter production is being optimized. And it's that virtuous circle that we need to see. So I guess those manufacturing guys should be pushing back against people like you, Dustin, who say, oh, wood's a natural product. Yeah, of course it's a natural product. I'm a wood scientist. I know it's a natural product. But in its current form, it's not necessarily any good to me. So perhaps my message would be, well, rather than telling the buyers what we've got available to sell, perhaps we should be listening to the buyers and finding out what it is that they want to buy. And then a partnership is finding some space in between those two things that you can both profit from. And I think for me, that is really the innovation. So other guys have talked a bit about terms, for instance, but actually it's much more fundamental than that. It's about the whole supply chain pulling in the same direction. And some of the projects in the UK have actually taken that to another level, whereby you've got suppliers, manufacturers, contractors, financiers, insurers, all sitting down together and producing the project in a way that splits those risks and splits the benefits as well. So it's much more about integration along the supply chain. That's really the fundamental innovation that potentially we can see. It was interesting, there was a quote today from the CEO of Royaume-Uni who was asked how they were so efficient in terms of timber frame delivery. And he said, the more integrated the supply chain, the more effective it becomes.
Can I add on top of it? No time?
I've got one more question. We are getting light on time, so I am going to add, I'm going to open up one final question that was kind of the genesis of this presentation, and I'll give you each a chance to speak on it. So when we originally got together to discuss a topic for this presentation, one of the things that we were, and this was many months ago, one of the things we were most intrigued by was the Build Canada Homes initiative. And so we wanted to explore it, and we found that at the time especially it was heavy on announcements and light on details. So we've spent some time learning about it, but I feel like a lot of you guys are on the front lines of dealing with this program or confronting it. So I want to give you a chance. I'm going to frame the question this way, and I'll start with you, Mario. What role does the federal government and programs like Build Canada Homes currently have in helping mass timber and industrialized construction?
Great question. So, we're seeing it firsthand, especially because of the slowdown in private construction that we've seen in Ontario. This is sort of coming as a saving grace to... I see it as something that's needed probably for a while, because what do we all need in manufacturing is we need to have a steady flow input of pipeline of projects to keep the factory going every day, right? So right now, until this engine gets going on its own, having this is, we see it as essential, because to get it going, I believe once it's going, and it may take 3 or 4 years or 5 years to get it going, then it'll be self-sustainable. But right now, I think without it, we'll go back. It's not the first time that prefab has come up, and in the past, perhaps one of the reasons that has not picking up the steam that it could have is because there was not that steady flow of projects. So we're seeing firsthand, as you mentioned, that these projects are giving us all some hope, and it's getting the industry buzzing, and they're leading by example, which is what's necessary right now.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point earlier that this might be, given the slowdown, the time to make the pivot. There's actually time to do it. So hopefully that is the case. And Alain, I'll turn to you. What are your thoughts on what role that program is going to play, or the government in general, in housing?
Regarding Build Canada Homes, there will be 1,000 houses to be built in Longueuil area near Montreal under the Build Canada Homes. It's supposed to start in 2026. In Ontario, there will be also projects, but it's not, at the beginning, it's not going to be fluid, because they need to adjust the tender based on our reality, like the payment term. And they need to sit with us at the beginning of the design phase. It's a good thing that the CMHC, they have made a catalog, so that can be prefabricated. This is a good thing. But Build Canada Home haven't done a catalog. So when they say, okay, we're going to start on public lands, 1,000 houses in suburban of Montreal, starting in 2026 or 2027, so they need to make their homework and sit with us and the architect and the engineer and the contractor on site, so we work as a team. As an example, in 2026, 500 units will start in Quebec, and the funding comes from the province of Quebec. So they have asked four people to sit together: the architect, the structural engineer, the manufacturer, and the contractor, and prove to the government you are able to do those 500 units. So the one that prove, they will have the chance to give the price, give a quote. But you have to remember one thing. He mentioned that, Nick. There's a 4-letter word, DFMA. It has to be designed for manufacture and assembly. If you buy a Sea-Doo, for example, to go riding on the water, you're in front of two Sea-Doo, and you're asking which one I'm going to take. They look different to you. But in fact, if it's the same brand, different model, what you don't know is they have the same transmission, they have the same clutch, they have the same, a lot of pieces are the same. You don't see it, but it's the reality. So now the construction will be more and more industrialized, but in order to succeed, the prefabricator, they must have volume and repetition. And this starts right at the design phase. So Build Canada Homes, they have good intention, but somehow they have some homework to do to prove to us that it's going to work.
And I think any of us that have heard about it didn't assume it was a fully formed, success out of the box. So I think that feedback is great, and I think, one of the goals of this panel and this discussion is to educate the rest of us to be armed to go out and advocate for the parts of our industry that need these changes or these adjustments to make it successful. So I think that's great feedback. Nick, I won't ask you to comment on Canadian politics, but I'm curious to know if there have been programs in the UK that have had an impact on housing supply or have focused on utilizing timber as opposed to masonry construction?
Yeah, we're really just starting to see that to come to fruition, Dustin. So we've had a change of government fairly recently. So before that, we had 15 years of conservative politics, and that didn't really deliver anything in the way of those kind of housing schemes. In fact, it delivered quite the opposite. So what we seen there was a lot of modular productivity being set up that then went out of business for exactly the reason that Mario has just suggested, is that those factories only work if there is a consistent pipeline of work. So for me, what we're trying to encourage the UK government to do is to provide that consistency. What we're saying to them is that if you want to deliver houses, the private sector can deliver some of those, and at times it can deliver a lot, but at other times like now, it's delivering almost none whatsoever. So if you want to support a housing sector going forward, you've got to step in the bad times to provide that consistency of projects, because otherwise you're never going to have an industrialised construction system. You know, the UK has peaks and troughs of housing, and that's why we have a site-based culture, is because you can turn that on and off very easily. But if we want an industrialised sector, then we have to have the consistent feed, and that's really what the UK government is just really starting to do.
Dennis, I'll give you a final word on the panel here, actually, and yeah, interested to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So I'm the last person before another drink. I should probably make this quick. Anyway, so your question, your premise was, you know, to build Canada homes, what that can do for industrialized construction. I think capital infusion. So I think, to what Nick just said, it helps with the peaks and valleys. We're in valleys. So getting that cash infusion is going to help get some projects off the sideline. Yes, they're going to be government funded, but that could also incur private money to come back in. If we can do pro formas and make things work in a downturn, I mean, that's your case study. When we can put up an 8-story building in 41 days and then have the prefab walls coming up as the floors are being erected, and it's a revenue-producing property, and you finish it 25 to 30% quicker, I mean, that's real. So that's what we have all that knowledge that we can share, but having the government step in and put some cash into the system, that's just going to keep the wheels turning.
Thanks very much, guys. Gentlemen, I appreciate all of your time and your thoughts. Can we have a round of applause for our panel, please? I do believe we want to open up for questions, if possible. We have had that box we toss around before, or there's a microphone. Does anyone have any questions for the panel?
A lot of talent up here. Dennis Forcado, Big Turtle Homes and Tiny Maison. One of the big things in the modular side of it that hasn't been touched on is the building departments. Each building department, whether it's Vancouver, Lunenburg, Toronto, and they have all their own little hierarchies. So as we're doing this, Dennis is left, it's all of a sudden when we're doing A277, they have to be educated saying, the moment we have this approved, don't look at it, don't touch it, just leave it alone, do your site plan. Any thoughts or comments?
So I'll jump in. I am a building code official in the States, non-practicing, but I got my license so I can have those conversations with the hierarchy. I think when I was back at my previous position, we were watching mass timber, and it wasn't until, you know, the 2015, 2016 cycles where Type 4 construction became more of a code-adopted building methodology, codified. So I think the codes, to your point, are coming up to speed. If you look at the IRC now in the States, the 2024 version, we're going to be able to go from 18-story to 24-story. So the codes are getting up to speed with what the technology has done for our businesses. Unfortunately, you're going to have some people digging their heels in because they want to build with a hammer. They don't want to use a nail gun. But we just need to educate them, you know, and there's a lot of third-party resources that we use. We have third-party testing agencies for our mills, and a lot of times we refer to them to help with those discussions and at a very micro level, like you and your building and your department. For me to get involved, it seems very one-sided and self-fulfilling, but that's why we get third-party people involved to really help drive that home. And it's a conversation to educate them, because in some cases they don't know what they don't know, but it's in the code. So I hope that helps. Yep.
Any other questions?
Could I just pick up an answer on that? All I'd say is think yourself lucky you don't live in the UK. We haven't even got a code, so every project has to be proven. And you imagine that as a barrier. So having a code is something we aspire to in terms of timber frame and industrialised construction. So be careful what you wish for.
There is something about that I've seen glimpses of here and there, different municipalities advancing, which is technology. So there is some, but too far in between municipalities that have adopted like more of an electronic review of their of the submissions for permits, etc., which is sort of eliminating some of the confusion, because it's more of a machine looking at it type of thing, right? So I think the same technology we're talking about implementing in our manufacturing, etc. There's like the municipalities, codes need to evolve, but even when the code is there, the person at the desk doesn't know how to interpret it. I mean, some of us, we were having a discussion earlier, and we're confused about, you know, what's allowed here or what's allowed there. So this is where the government, again, can and should be playing a role to expedite that. So I understand there's actually grants from CMHC for municipalities to invest in those technologies, but there's pushback from some municipalities because the trade-off, apparently there's carrots that, you know, will give you the grant for the technology so you can expedite your permitting process, but you have to do X, Y, Z. So it's coming with strings attached. So then there's the pushback, and then we're not moving. So I mean, someone's got to be the adult in the room and say, okay, you know, let's get it done, right? So yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
All right, well, I hope everybody enjoyed today's seminar. So just as a reminder, one of the big focuses for NAWLA is wholesale. The Wholesale Lumber Association is networking and education. Obviously, we're networking before and after, but you know, for this event, the evolution of prefabricated home construction, we believe it represents a big change in the supply chain of the industry and a tremendous amount of opportunity for many folks here in the room. And I hope you learned something that you can take home with you. So thank you very much for joining us. Again, thank you to everybody on stage here. Very informative presentation. Thank you to our moderator, Dustin Wood. And yeah, please enjoy cocktails, appetizers for the next hour. Thanks again.